practice.
Nice.
I can't see you if you do it. The setup used to look completely different. We had a long, like a bench dining room table right here, basically.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Actually, the one out there, right?
Is it that one?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So we were sitting right in front of the people, but it was just crammed because we had all the lights on the table. We had GoPros in the very beginning, so
Okay.
it was busy.
the
Yeah.
setup looked
It's
a
a lot more
different.
comfortable.
Yeah, it's really cozy. In fact, he just built me are in the process of finishing one of those kind of like dark academia, moody maximalist rooms. Like, with
Okay.
like that
Wow, that's specific.
dark. I'm a freak about that whole genre of decor. So we basically marketplaced for like a month, found like all like this old like antique furniture, like this weird mauve couch, like these giant mauve curtains, like, so it's like now I've got like this like actual room in a midst of a home that are basically just gutting and remodeling.
Nice.
And it's like, where is sane in the home? It's like, it's here. So we have one sane room, one.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
I admire the people that go and travel in motorhomes. They sell their houses and then they go travel
Yeah.
and they just work remotely like that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
really
yeah,
nice.
yeah.
I want to do that.
Our work is so restrictive. Like he does like a lot of CNC work. I paint. So it's like, you've got to have like the easel and the this and the that. And these aren't small
Yeah.
paintings. These are at least like 5 feet by 5 by 5s, 5 feet by 5. Yeah.
Jeez.
So, and then he just did a gigantic wall for, was it a hotel, hospital? Yeah, he does like large scale art. So it's like we thought about the whole mobility thing, and it's like we are the opposite of mobile.
Yeah.
So
Sounds kind of impossible.
It is
You're anchored in.
it's
You have to be
absolutely-
very minimal to my dad does it. Yeah.
See, and that's the other thing. It's like, okay, now scale your life down. I'm like, I want all this.
Yeah.
It's like you have to get rid of some of it. It's like, but I can't. So there's that. So anyway.
Well, I appreciate you for coming on the podcast. I met you at a farmer's market in Lake
Yes,
Jackson.
you did.
And you told me briefly about your story that you were vegan for 14 years, right? 13, 14 years, somewhere around there.
Okay, so that was a whole journey. When I was young, I'd say like 13, 14, I started going like, okay, why are things dying so I can live? And it just seems so barbaric. And especially coming from a family who had a great uncle that owned like a slaughterhouse and a processing plant, like I've seen the process. And you're just like, what am I doing here? So I kind of made the slow vegetarian, pescatarian transition. I kind of like come off it every now and then because I would just feel like horrible. And then like you would be like, okay, no, once again, I'm back to just barbaric. And then one day, like I just did the whole vegan route, and I stayed mostly vegan for about 14, 15 years, with the exception of I had to put eggs back in because I just felt horrible. And people, oh, you did it wrong. You did it wrong. No, I mean, I was doing the macrobiotic, the little tofu green salads. I mean, all the pretty pictures you see, like the pinnacle of health, the juices, the smoothies. And I never felt good once in all that. I mean, I had brain fog. I couldn't sleep. You walk around like with just constant digestive issues, and people are like, no, that's just how you're supposed to feel. And I'm just like, something just tells me this is not how I'm supposed to feel. But then it's like also, okay, I'm taking the moral high ground here, or what I perceive as the moral high ground. So maybe this is just my martyrdom, my cross to bear, and then one day you start to kind of see people that are on this diet that are thriving and they're doing well. And it's so funny because at first you're just like, oh my God, they're going to die of a heart attack. Like, what is the matter with you? Who does this? Who does a diet this extreme? And then you realize, oh my God, I'm on an extreme diet. And then you just start to like really have to think about like, what's going to happen to me? Here I am. I care so much about what happens to others. I care what happens to animals. I care. It's like, but at a certain point, it's like to where you get to the opposite of you don't even care about yourself, And so finally, like I think like I went all in one day. It's very weird. Can I discuss like psilocybin?
Yeah.
Or okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So we therapeutically use psilocybin, and it's worked great. Like, he has horrible ADHD. I deal with like ASD. And as I was making this transition, I did a fairly high, like a heroic dose. And in the middle of this, it hit me that there are 4 things that you don't fuck with in this world. And to me, that's God, that's nature, that's your health, and that's your interpersonal relationships and your marriage. So in that whole revelation, I'm like, I'm putting just the first 3 in jeopardy here: nature, God, and my health. And it's like I'm going against like every grain and fiber of my being and of nature, and I'm just not doing well here. I mean, I don't feel well. I am just like tanking my health, and it would just like I could hardly eat. It would get to the point where I could only eat 2 bites of food before I would just feel nauseous and bloated and just horrible. So I think that night I made the full transition. Of course, in the weeks before, I had already stopped eating bread and like stopped drinking beer. Like had a suspect that gluten was a factor. So then like that night I was like, you know what, that's it. I can't do this anymore. And then of course you take things out, then you kind of go down to like the beef and the salt thing. And then you can slowly put things back in, like minimally processed dairy, minimally processed, things here and there. And then, but it's almost to where it's just like if I just had beef and eggs, I'm fine. So that's kind of like in a nutshell, my whole journey with it.
So when you were younger, did you watch a documentary? Did you read a book? What kind of pushed you into thinking in that mindset? Because for me, when I started considering that like 5-6 years ago, it was a documentary. I watched one of those Netflix documentaries, Forks for Knives or
yes.
Cowspiracy, one of those ones. I don't remember which one, but those are really well-produced documentaries that make you feel like a horrible person and that you're gonna die.
They are. And also Forks Over Knives was a big one. There was I remember Cowspiracy, and then it's just I remember Forks Over Knives, they especially talk about how like, oh well, these beef farmers get all these subsidies, and you're like, then you're watching and you're like, that's horrible. And now I'm like, good. Especially now it's seeming like farming is kind of under attack. It's like, no, give them the subsidies or help. It's like they're making people healthy here. They're giving people access to like clean, healthy food, and you're demonizing them and you're villainizing them. There was also Food Matters, which was the complete vegan thing, and it gets to the point where you're like, somebody's lying here. Like, somebody's fucking lying here. Who is it? Is it them or is it me? Like, it's like, am I crazy? Am I like self-gaslighting? Am I being gaslit? And so, yeah. And, it's crazy because then when I was younger and I made the kind of vegetarian vegan transition, of course you got a hold of all this like PETA propaganda. And then you learn that that's actually one of the most horrible organizations in the world. And you're just like, what is wrong with you guys? Like, can we just have like an actual discussion on our health here without like villainizing or demonizing? And it's just, it's been very weird.
Yeah.
So,
And you were vegan when you were 14. That seems like way out of when it became mainstream. I mean, because Forks for Knives, I don't think was out then.
Oh no,
I don't really know your timeline, but
I just turned 40 this year, so
okay,
this would have been circa like, oh my god, like 1997, 1998.
So where'd you even? I know it's around, but it just wasn't in your face like it is now.
Okay, so you used to be able to go to the library, like, and they at the library, particularly that I grew up next to, they had all these like manuals and little leaflets and stuff, and they'd always have the PETA leaflets, and I'm drawn to stuff like that, and I'm drawn to anything that's like, oh, kind of even contrarian, so I'm like, oh, this is interesting, and you pick this up and you're like, oh my gosh, like this is horrible. Like, how could you even like live with yourself? How could you even like eat like this if knowing that this is around? And so I started like, I don't want to have red meat. I don't want to have chicken. And my parents are like, okay, yeah, whatever, do what you want. But then, and here you are thinking like, maybe I'll feel like I'm feeling emotionally better. And but it's like you just never felt physically well. And I just feel like I went through most of my life feeling very physically unwell. So,
Was there a period of time where you did feel good and you think, and you would look at people eating meat and kind of demonize them because you were thinking that you were better than them?
oh
And
my
did you
God.
have a period of time where you were on the vegan diet where you're like, I am feeling, this is the best I've ever felt ever?
Okay. When I first started, and I do mean like first, I was like, cut out everything. I'm like, I am having like lemon and ginger juices for breakfast. I'm having like spinach and vegan protein smoothies for lunch. I'm having like this beautiful like tofu salad. There's a period of about, I would say, 2 weeks where I was like, okay, this is great. This is great. Because you're just like, you're just stabbing in the dark here at this point. You're trying to find what works and what doesn't work. And finally, after that period, it was just like I feel like just hot shit all the time. Like I feel, like I said, I feel nauseous. And about like 2 months in, it's like I think I have brain fog. We got to a point where we were eating so much tofu that we were crashing like at about 3 o'clock every afternoon. And this was not a normal 3 o'clock crash. This was like I need to go lay down and take a nap. And then we later figured out that it was the soy that was kind of causing that, like zapping your energy. And so, yeah, that was, it did not take long for me to feel very, very unwell. And that's why I just get so frustrated when people are like, oh, we didn't do it right. It's like, I did everything right. I supplemented myself to death, you know? And to go back to your question, like, yes, I look at people like, oh my God, they're eating, look at all that beef they're eating. Like, you're going to have a heart attack, blah, blah, blah. It's like, is it the beef or is it like the, 5 pieces of bread on their plate and like the, like copious amounts of like junk food they're eating? It's like, which is it? So then you start moving into the curiosity zone. And, like I was kind of like, okay, I started hearing more and more about carnivore. And, I'm like, okay, well, there's Michaela Peterson. Like, I really like Michaela Peterson. She's done Lion Diet. She looks fantastic. And then I got into like Steak and Butter Gal and, let me think, Kelly Hogan. And there were just a few, and you'd see women mainly on this diet. And I'm like, these women look freaking fantastic. And they're looking like they feel fantastic. They have energy. Their skin looks great. And you're just like, okay, I'm doing something wrong here. And I like to like think of myself as a fairly honest person. I mean, I would never tell somebody to do something that I wouldn't personally do myself. And like I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm just like, here's what worked for me. I can't promise that this is going to work for you, but I'm just telling you what I know. I'm just telling you what my experience is. So that's kind of like how I just got there. And then the demonizing too, it doesn't really stop when you first start. And even today, I'm still like, am I doing the right thing? And then as I feel better and better, because I would tell somebody who did this, you will feel better within about a week or two. And then within 6 months, you'll feel really great. And then in about a year, I'm at about the 2 year mark. And I've was telling my husband, like, I'm starting to feel even better. And then you start seeing all these researches from like Harvard, from Yale, like people on the autism spectrum, people that are bipolar. When they put them on these like high, like keto carnivore diets, a lot of their symptoms disappear. A lot of my ASD symptoms have, I wouldn't say disappeared because, you're stuck with it, but I would say a lot of them have kind of like pulled back. And I've never been able to think like as clearly as I do now. So there's that. So.
How did your relationships, how did it affect your relationships when you transitioned? Did you lose friends?
Absolutely. I had like people, I would call them like acquaintances, delete me off Facebook. They're like, oh, you've become this monster. You've become like everything you've ever hated. I'm like, yeah, I'm such a monster, And it's like, so okay, I got one. It was just like such hyperbole. It's like, I guess you're okay with murder. It's like, no, I'm okay with healing myself. And it's like, well, I guess you didn't do it right. I guess you didn't. And then there's a source, there's still like, it's still very weird when you do sit down to eat with people that you don't really know. And it's like, is that just a piece of steak on your plate? It's like, yeah. It's like, okay, so you didn't get any vegetables. You didn't get, I'm like, no. And then you'll hear it from people that have never read a single oh my God, that's how like, people have heart attacks. Like you're going to get heart disease. And I'm looking around. I'm like, do I look like I'm going to get heart disease? It's just, and you get these comments too from people that are just so unhealthy and you know they're unhealthy and so yeah, I do feel like it does give kind of like a source of like contention like sometimes, and like there are people that are just never going to be comfortable with it. And I've learned that I don't need that approval anymore. But it is hard when you first transition, I would say.
Yeah, John
so
and I got all that too. Like whenever we do something out of the norm, we get like the most unhealthy people, and they're just really putting a mirror on themselves and
Yeah.
challenging their own beliefs, really. And it's kind of like you explained it better. It's kind of like a jealousy type thing, but they're questioning their own beliefs and what they're doing, and so they get scared and then they kind of attack you.
That's how I kind of felt too. I feel like it's like I'm holding like a mirror to you going, I can do this, you know? And let's be honest, like is it like the most fun way of eating? Are you like the most fun person at the party? It's like no, and it's so funny cuz you'll be like at a restaurant or something and you'll just be like everybody's like ordering all this like fun food and you're just like I'm not touching any of that, especially once you learn like what's in it. So you get this kind of like Debbie Downer type thing too. And I feel like it does make a lot of people uncomfortable because they're like, listen, I'm indulging tonight. I'm stuffing my face. I'm this. And then they look at you and I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah,
And so
there's a lot of power in that, though.
there
I was,
is.
when I transitioned to the carnivore animal based world, I was the person that wanted to explain all the benefits and persuade you against it. And where I'm at now in my journey is I'm okay not explaining it, and I'm just okay just saying no, I don't want it, and just leaving it at that. To me, there's more power in not saying anything like you are doing now, just saying I don't want to mess with it. And then if they ask, if they open the door, then they're really curious about it. But where I was, I'm more of a person, like a pushy person. Like if I learn
Right.
something and it benefits me, historically, I'm like a kid with a piece of candy. I want to give it to everybody.
Well, see, I'm like a
But
big info dumping person too.
yeah,
So like if like, you know, you ask me like things about my favorite things or about like diet, like I've always been really into diet. So if you ask me things about that, I'm just like, okay, we're going all in here. And people, it's like, I'm so sorry I asked.
yeah.
So I think people that know me for the most part, they're like, you know what? Just leave her alone. Like, so.
Well, first off, it's not murder when they tell you that. It's slaughter. So
Thank you. Exactly. Exactly.
I was gonna bring that up.
Yeah.
So I was vegan for several years.
Oh, wow.
And I want to get into that a little bit. But what was like morally? How did you get past? Because my big thing was like killing the animals, and then you go outside and you see like we drove by some baby cows yesterday, and they're just so innocent.
Yes.
They're looking at you and they don't want to do anything bad to you. And then you have dog. We don't eat dogs, but dogs are animals too. And then like you transition, and then you start seeing like the meat, and you're eating it, and something got killed. So my biggest thing when I was transitioning, I was like, shit, that's like weighing on me pretty hard. So how did you get through that?
Okay. It's kind of like multi-layered. I, for a while, I had to just not think about it. And then when I started thinking about it, I'm like, okay, this is still going to happen whether or not I eat these animals or not. And of course, like, we hope every animal is treated respectfully. Like we eventually want to have our own livestock because I want chain of custody on my food. Um, I think how I ultimately got past that, and it sounds very selfish, but also I can be very selfish. I have no problem admitting that. And I think I just had to get selfish, and I had to go like, you know what? Like nature doesn't care like who lives, who dies, who this, who that. It's like, aren't we part of nature? Aren't we part of this whole earth, you know? And And at a certain point, I was just like, I'm sorry. Like, if I'm going around saying a cow is important, it's like, why the hell am I not important, you know? Like, why does my health not matter? Like, this cow is going to be slaughtered regardless of whether I eat the cow or I don't. And I get a little frustrated, like, when vegans try to do the moral high ground, because I'm like, do you know how many animals actually died for your factories? Like, how many workers are exploited for your factories? And I get, like, that they can then come at you and make the argument like, well, no, we're not sending, like, things to slaughter. This is collateral. And I'm just like, you know what? At a certain point, we're just all collateral. You know, like, we have to be here. And why are we just making things more difficult for ourselves? Like, why, if a cow counts, do I not count? Do you not count? Does he not count, or does she not count? You know, and you. It's like, and then you wonder, it's like, did my ancestors feel guilty? It's like, because I mean, this has been going on since the beginning of time. And so I think I just kind of had to put this, like, selfish aspect on it, and just put, like, listen, I belong here too. I deserve to feel good. I'm sorry that something has to die so I can feel good, but that's just where we're at, you know? And I wish, I'm sorry, and
No, go
I
ahead.
wish there was a better way to put it, like a nicer, more like fluffier, like more philosophical way to put it. And maybe there is, I'm just not that articulate. So
That's my
yeah,
problem. It always boils down to like cognitive dissonance. It's like
yeah,
you just have to put it outside of your mind and not think about it. But then I'll look out in nature and there's constant things killing one another,
right.
and there's a food chain. So that's the thing kind of brings me back, but it's something I kind of battle with mentally.
Yeah, and I just, if I said like I didn't still struggle with it, I'd be lying. Because I do. Like you said, like, I mean, we live in Jones Creek. There's cow pastures everywhere. I pass a cow pasture. I'm like, look at them. The cows are all communing together. They're hanging out. Like, what did they do to me? And it's like, bro, you didn't do anything to me. It's like, I just really, really need you. Like,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Well, we're one of the only species that can show empathy.
Right.
Like, we have the ability in our brain to access that way of thinking. Also, the common argument is like, well, we wouldn't eat a dog or a cat. Well, like, we domesticated dogs. You know what I mean? Like, when vegans say like, would you eat a dog? Like, well, no, but we domesticated dogs. They were fucking wolves. So
Right.
we would kill the wolves back in the day. You know what I mean? Or we would kill a cat back in the day. Like, over time, we domesticated those animals.
Right, exactly.
So it's like, you can't compare a dog to a cow or to a bison. Or
Yeah, and I mean, I could understand if like we had like cows living in our homes and it was just like, hey, you know, come on in, and where's the cow? The fucking cow's in the living room, you know. But that's like not where we're at. And so yeah, I that argument like really bothers me, because I'm just like, just stop, you know. Like, it's like, oh, would you eat your dog? It's like, I mean, no.
I would, if it came down to it.
Okay, like if we're in like an apocalyptic
Yeah.
situation,
I would eat the dog.
Yeah, that we had that argument too. Is like I eat the meat, but like if I had a farm or whatever, got really friendly with whatever I had, I'd have a real hard time killing it.
See, and that was one thing. Like, fun fact, like even when I was vegan, I hate cows. Like, I am utterly terrified. No, I am utterly okay. So my family has land in like Montgomery County, and my dad would always be like, "Oh, cows know if you're scared of them." Well, apparently I'm fucking terrified of cows. Cows, I will stand by this, will come at you if they know you're scared of them, or if you flinch, or if you, and of course I'd always flinch around these cows.
Do you have the gray cows, like the big one, the Brahmas?
No, they had a few Brahmas, but they mostly had the little like kind of just multicolored, like the brown and white beef cows.
Okay.
So I actually like developed like this fear of cows. So it's just so funny that it's just like I don't even like cows. So when we were talking about livestock, it's like, oh, I could totally have no problem sending a steer to slaughter. But then it's like, okay, so put some goats on your property.
Yeah,
I got a big problem. Like,
Yeah, but
can we-
goats are good though.
yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. It's like I'm so partial to them. It's like, is the meat good? It's like, yeah. It's like, okay, are you gonna order goat? It's like, no. Like, but yeah, if it's like, oh, send your goats to slaughter, I'm like, I can't do it.
Oh.
Sheep, I'm kind of indifferent towards, but yeah, goats and also like chickens. I'm like, I really like birds. Like chickens are like really cool. And our neighbor has chickens. And I'm like, these guys are awesome. It's like, okay, like go out there and like slaughter one of your chickens. And I'm just like, no, also no. So yeah, I'm trying to think of like what is the animal that I would be comfortable with. And to most people's heart, it's probably a cow. I'm just like, just you stay over there, you get a good life, and like in 2 years, you have shuffled off this mortal coil. But hey, you got a good life, dude. So
Have you ever hunted before?
no, well, okay, no, that's a lie. I went with my dad squirrel hunting when I was very young. I've always wanted to. Hunting to me is like that is to me the cleanest, most humane part of obtaining meat. If I ever got an opportunity, I absolutely would because I really feel like if you're going to eat an animal, you should also confront the mortality of the animal too. Being another reason why I want, chain of custody on my own livestock. But no, as far as hunting as an adult, I never have, but I'm definitely not opposed to it.
We'll
So.
go after this.
Oh yeah.
Right outside.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right outside.
Yeah, there's still enough kind of like wooded area left.
Yeah.
We'll check it out.
It is a weird thought though of being connected to a steer. My dad has his steer in a corral, and in a couple of weeks he's going to ship it off to get it slaughtered. And me and the kids were out there, and the steer was jumping around and like just messing with the hay. So you could feel sorry for it, but you can also change the way you think about it. And if the plant-based community stands on their moral high ground, we can stand on our moral high ground and
Absolutely.
say like this animal is going to nourish our bodies for a year,
And
for an entire year.
right, not only nourish your bodies for an entire year, but what kind of life did that animal have, and did you do your part? Like if you're going to do this, it's like you had chain of custody on that animal from very young until it was ultimately slaughtered. And to me, there's something really special and very sacred about that. And I would love to have that experience. To me, that's better than going to the grocery store and it's like buying your perfect little cube of whatever. And it's like, oh, okay. And it's like, I have no chain of custody on this. And I've been told, oh, well, it's like, it's cruel. It's cruel to send like your own cow to buy people who also eat meat. And I'm like, no, one of these things does feel a little cruel, but one of these things feels more humane. And I can explain to you, which doesn't take a genius for me to be like, this is the more humane area. Yeah.
I like how Taylor did it at Rome Ranch. He said it would be a special day. It'd be the animals' day, and they'd all go out and
Slit his throat.
slit his throat. But then they'll have like this ceremonious thing and pray.
See, that's kind of what I had in mind too. I'm like, the day before slaughter should be kind of a ceremonious day. This animal, I think I heard it the best was a lady who was a cattle rancher. She said, we take care of them until they take care of us. So I think that it just would be a more sacred experience than, like I said, just going to the grocery store, like, oh, here's a cube of meat. Where did this come from? Was this cow happy? Did I have like any say in this? It's like, no. So
we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, but we're, as a society, as a culture, we're really disconnected from all that. You talk about going and buying the meat, but it's not just grocery store. It's food shopping. It's everything. It's marriage. It's death. Death is another like really big topic that Mike and I always talk about, but we're really disconnected from family death. You know
we
what I mean?
really are. And there's actually, I follow so many death positive channels too, where it's like, oh, okay, so great. You've not like tended to your loved one. You've not taken care of them. It's like at the end of the day, like what was more meaningful? And people are like, oh, that's morbid. I don't want to think about it. It's like, well, you're immortal, so you might want to start thinking about what you would want, So, and it's just how it's so funny how we're just, like you said, we're just shielded from so much, especially in Western culture. We're shielded from where our food comes from. We're shielded from the people who bring us our food. We don't see the realities of like what these people go through. I mean, a lot of these people do go through like psychological issues working in these plants and these like cattle yards. And I mean, I can't imagine you being able to stay sane after doing something like that. And then, we're shielded from death. We're shielded from a birth in a lot of times.
Birth.
Yeah. And it's just like, we don't want to talk about like realities of anything. And I think like it's part of the reason to me carnivore has become so controversial, because it's like nobody wants to talk about the realities of their health anymore. We want to go with, oh, a calorie is a calorie and blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, if a calorie is a calorie, explain to me why I can take 2 bites of a vegan meal, feel horrible, not have the body composition I want, lose copious amounts, like an unhealthy amount of weight because I can't fucking eat.
Mm.
And then explain to me how I can then have a plate of beef put in front of me and I can demolish that plate. And it's funny because you're told like, oh, it's filling and you'll feel gross and heavy and weighted down, but actually feel like light as a feather. And it's like nobody wants to confront the truth about anything. We just want to be like, oh, that donut is just as good for you, or no, that salad's great. It's like, is it? It's like, can we just stop lying? Can we just stop like insulating and lying? Because it's like, it's really irritating. So.
What is that saying? Can you say that what that guy said about the calories?
Oh,
the
shit.
video.
We were more on this calorie kick, and he said calories dictate your weight, macronutrients dictate your body composition, and micronutrients dictate your mood.
Wow. Yeah.
Or how you feel? Yeah, you did
Wow.
good. You
Yeah.
did good.
I'm off the line.
Oh my god. Yeah. We working right now. We both were at a state where we wanted to optimize the way we felt.
Right.
So it's something that I've never done, is focused in on the caloric food that I'm eating. So I've shifted away from carnivore a little bit, just because I'm trying to meet my target goals.
Okay.
But long term, I'm gonna get back to it. But it's amazing, like how much, like you were talking about, like vegan food. So there's these like Quest bars that just are really good. Have you seen them? The
I
Quest.
remember Quest bars.
Oh god, they're so good. So
the birthday cake.
yeah,
Oh,
they're so good. The peanut butter cookie is like my jam. But
Okay, that one was legit.
that one's good. That one tastes really good. So there's in the very beginning on this journey where I wanted to mess around. I had like 500 calories left. So I was like, I'll have a couple of cookies because I can still be way under my calories. And then I woke up the next day feeling bloated, and it wasn't anything. It was because of the cookies. So I could have filled my caloric intake for
Right.
the day with something else,
Right.
and not felt that way. And that's what we're learning. It's for me, it's like day 32 or 33.
Yeah.
But it's I like continuing this journey and learning, and that's why we want to talk to you about.
Well, see, here's after 2 years what I've noticed. Occasionally like he'll bring me home some candy or something. And I'll be like, okay, instead of like it being eaten like every other day or something, it's like it takes me like 3 months to finish like a little bag of like truffles, cuz to me, I've lost the taste for a lot of things. Even on like nights I'm drinking, your tendency on like nights you're out drinking is it's like, I'm going to go like to Denny's and I'm going to get like a stack of like pancakes or like some just like insane shit, you know? And now it's so funny because we'll be drinking and I'm like, I just want a steak. Like I just make me a freaking steak. Like nothing else sounds good. And so I've lost a taste for a lot of things, and including stuff like Quest bars and just things that would kind of fill in the gaps. And I've also, I hate to admit it because I was already neurotic, I've become more neurotic about like, does this have seed oils? Does this have like this? Was it made with this? Was it, oh my God, do I see skim milk on that label? Like it's become really weird. Like I already wasn't neurotic enough. And it's funny because I don't want to always like, we always kind of like want to condone our own behaviors, and some of my behaviors I don't want to condone because they're actually not, like I can be a bit like on the orthorexic side. So I have to like check myself every now and then and be like, look, listen, if you're on the road and you can't find anything else, it's fine to eat like some burger patties from like Burger King. Like you're going to be fine. You can have some burger patties from Whataburger. It's like, you're not going to die if you don't eat at home. And I feel like that if we're going back to like friends, I forgot to mention that is one thing that can be really difficult is you have friends. It's like, let's just even go out to eat like a good meal. And you're just like, I don't know who cooked that food. I don't know what you like. He cooks 99% of my food. So it's crazy because like I'm even like almost like too neurotic to like eat out anymore. And then you'll be served something that you don't normally eat, like you'll a piece of sushi instead of like a piece of like beef, and you're like, I feel fine, but I really could have felt better.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to optimize like how I can feel better. And I think it's like because I felt like shit for so long. Like you're just like we got stuck walking around in Galveston one day, and it's like, do you want to go here? Do you want look, we're in Galveston, pick something. And I'm like, I can't. I simply can't do it. So yeah, it is definitely, it can be very weird and off-putting at times. I will fully acknowledge that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that. I'm in that predicament today because I'm like, oh, I want to bring my girlfriend out to have a good time, but it's like, it's not worth it to me. Like,
No, it's not.
I don't want to go to, like, I'm looking up things, and you can look up little like no seed oil places,
Right. Oh, right.
you know. But it's like, it's better to cook at home. I'm losing the taste for these. Like, I've never been a sweet person. I've always been kind of savory. She's more sweet, and it's just like, where are we gonna go? Like, I want to do something that's going to benefit my health today so that I can make advancements tomorrow.
Exactly. Well, like, so yesterday, when we were kind of stuck in town, there's this Indian place he'd always wanted to go to. And I'm like, okay, great. I can get beef. I can get lamb. Excellent. So we go there and we eat, and was it good? Absolutely. Did I feel terrible afterwards? Also, yes. And it's not that I still don't use spices, or we don't use spices when we're cooking. It's just like, I feel like you get to a place where you just don't even have the flora for that. Like your body's like, no, did you make this? Did you put this, and this in it? And so, yeah, I think like, yeah, it can get to a point where it's like, I want to have fun. I don't want to bum anyone out, but I also don't want to feel like shit tomorrow. So yeah, that's kind of where I am.
The seed oils talk is it's a whole nother level. Like there's levels, like you, maybe if you're in the very beginning, you're cutting out, I don't know, ice cream or sugar or bread.
Right.
And then once you get a good hold of that, you go to the next level. It's like, okay, I'm going to really clean up my diet. I'm only going to eat meat and vegetables. And then you just keep learning. So I wonder what the next thing is.
Here's our
Water and air.
Right. Yeah.
That's where you go for vegan, right? Like
water. You can talk.
Oh God. He was just talking about the microplastics in water.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's where we're at. Like we just bottled water. I grew up drinking bottled water. We finally took the plunge to get like the copper cistern.
Oh, damn.
Well, we have well water in Jones Creek. It tastes like metal, honestly. So it's like, okay, so I'm not drinking that. I don't even give it to my pets. It's gross. So then one day you learn about like the microplastics, and you're like, oh great, that's great. Another fucking level of neurosis for me. But fine, we're just gonna roll with it. And then also, he then read about how a lot of the oil, like the olive oil, the avocado oil, like there might be microplastics in that, like because they're just dumping this stuff in bottles in the factories, and unless you're gonna pay $30 for a quality bottle of olive oil, it's just, you don't know. So now we're at the place where it's like, do we cook all of our food in tallow? And it's just, I feel like when you get somewhere, it's just, there's one more layer.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you're like kind of like a more health-minded person, it's like, where does it stop? Where I've kind of stopped it, it's like, I haven't given up caffeine or alcohol, because I'm just like, okay, you know what? This is already really boring. It's like, I want to be able to have a glass of wine. I still need some coffee. Like, kudos to the people who can just go like all out. It's like, that's where I just kind of had to be like, you know what? I still want to have some sense of enjoyment here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that we talked about water too. You get to the point where you have this machine that uses infrared or something that's supposed to be able to get out the microplastics, but you get to the point where you've stripped the water of everything, and now you have dead water.
Yeah,
which can be bad for you.
Yeah, you don't want that either.
So then you throw the dead water in like a stainless steel, thing, and then let it filter out, and then you need to add minerals again. So that's normal.
You have to add electrolytes that are filled from plastic bottles.
Yeah, so it's like you're never gonna win with water.
It's like you can't win.
Just do the best you can.
Well, like right now, like for me, every morning I drink the lemon water with salt. And I use like Redmond sea salt, which is the best. And as I'm filling my little teaspoon thing today, I look and I'm like, are you fucking, this salt's in plastic. It's all in plastic. And so, I shouldn't be like neurotic about my salt even. And then it's like, here we are. Like, just here we are.
I'm glad there's people out there like you and me.
Yeah.
And because I so stress about that. It drives my wife insane.
He's a good sport. He was a great sport when I was vegan. He's an excellent cook. He went from almost knowing nothing about because we ate plant-based and he ate it right along with me. And he went from almost like not knowing how to cook beef properly to like, we're like sous videing our beef and then he's like searing it. And it's just, we've gotten to like where he'll go to HEB and just buy up like all the sale beef. And we're just like, what is it, like an hour, 2 hours of just nonstop food prep and like freezing and labeling. And then it's just, I can't imagine it's the most fun thing for you, but he's a good sport about
Looks
it.
like he loves it.
Yeah.
He's a good sport about it.
Did you ever get any blood work done when you were on vegan?
I never got blood work done on vegan. I still need to get blood work done on carnivore. And they're like, expect your triglycerides and like your LDL. I don't know a whole lot about that. He does the more technical side of it. But everyone's blood work I've got they've reported on, you'll actually have these, there's starting to pop up, like a lot of these heart surgeons are on animal based and carnivore. And they'll look at these people's blood work and they'll break it down to where you're more or less like you're fine. They're like, if something is absolutely wrong with you, especially like heart or blood pressure wise, it's like you're going to know.
Yeah.
So
do you follow Dr. Ovadia?
Oh, actually, Dr. Ovadia was the one who's, I think, decoding. He's got the Stay Off My Table podcast.
Yeah.
Right, and he's the one. They did that reversed series.
Yep.
And then I think he's the one telling people, it's like, look. Let's backtrack. Let me explain why this is important. Why this is this. Why this is that. I kind of do get lost in the tech talk of it. Like, I used to really try and listen to like Huberman. And Huberman loses me at about the 30-minute mark.
Dude, I'm glad someone's talking about that. He just long-witted on everything.
Yeah.
I have to, if I'm going to listen to a Huberman episode, it has to be an episode that I really, really wanted to listen to. And then I think I have to break it down into like 30-minute increments because I have to digest like it's to me, like my favorite novel series is Dune. Like, listening to Huberman is akin to like reading a Dune book. It's like I can read a little bit, I have to kind of digest it, and then I have to come back to it and be like, okay, did you understand what you just read? Did you understand what you just heard? And a lot of times I'm just like, no, like
I just zone off, man. Like,
yeah, like
and it's interesting.
trying.
There's just too, like, I wish they would just throw it in AI and summarize it. You know what I mean? But
it's like I'm trying here. I'm hanging on to every word, and it's just like, and then just there goes my attention. So yeah.
He is hard to, but he breaks it down really like
he does
non-geeky or non-scientific.
He does. I appreciate that he tries to like give it to the lay people, and then you're just like, you're like listening and like, am I still just not even smart enough for this? Like, I guess not.
I know. That's where I'm at too. And he dances around. He's like, well, triglycerides, like if you're particularly interested in it, you don't have to be, but you could be. But if you want to go down this road, it's like, just say what the fuck you're saying.
Yeah, please, for the love of God, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I'm struggling.
Give me the number.
Yes.
There's Ovadia. Who's another good doctor? Do you watch Sean Baker stuff? He's kind of like the OG, right? So
I think there was Sean Baker, and then who is it that you watch? There was another doctor that you like. Okay.
Paul Saldino?
I don't think it's him, but there's a guy he watches. I'll have to like email you the name if I come across him, but he watches a really good one. It was like the guy that first started talking about erythanol and like stevia and like artificial sweeteners.
Is it the gray hair guy?
No, he's a little younger than that. I'll have to look. I have to, because I don't want to tell you wrong. But yeah, he's the guy that kind of exposed like, hey, if you are using sweeteners with erythanol in it, stop. You probably are getting heart palpitations. And I'm like, holy shit, yes, I am.
Yeah.
Stop. So it just, like I said, it's like where do we stop? I don't know. You know, it's like just keep going. You just keep going, and it's like, do I just end up like a neurotic recluse, like in the middle of the country one day? It's like probably. So
do you buy into the ideology of like sun exposure when you transition to meat being okay, not to protect yourself from like wearing sunscreens and stuff like that?
I'm not there yet. I've been obsessed with my skin my whole life. What's crazy is I used to tan like crazy when I was like 17, 18. And then you like learn about how bad that is. And then I kind of am one of those people that is more like weary of the sun. I feel like I should get a little more sun exposure than I do. Like I do a lot of yard work, but like in the evening, I feel like I should try, but I'm kind of split on that ideology right now because I'm just uncertain. It's like, do we want to gamble here? Do we really want to risk that? So that one I'm still kind of like I'm like 50-50 on.
I'm trying to find a good guest to bring on the podcast to talk about SPF blockers.
See, I would love to know that.
I'm trying to, because I think, with our skincare business that my wife and I do, been looking at the cancer research, and when SPF was largely manufactured, the cancer rates almost doubled.
I've heard that.
Year. So I'm trying to find someone really good and who's public to come and talk about it.
Right.
But I think I'm worried, not worried, but I can see the carnivore community starting to shift to the extreme, kind of like the vegan community is.
Yes.
And it's just beginning to get a little too much. Like they're out there with their clothes off and they're bathing their buttholes with the sun
Their
now.
balls,
Do you see
their
that?
balls.
Their balls and buttholes.
And you're
they're
like,
doing
yo, what the fuck, dude?
Yeah.
Like, you can't. That's not.
Yeah. It's getting too much.
Yeah, and that is one thing I will say. If you are on a strict diet, it's always going to come with too much. Like no different than like if you're anti big pharma. It's like, did you now get sucked into like the batshit part of it, or are you still like in that good middle ground?
Yeah.
And I try to just remain in that good middle ground. I try to like go, okay, listen, you're not going to do this perfectly. That's okay. You're not a fucking influencer. You're an artist who lives in Jones Creek. Why are you not? Yeah. I mean, come on. Let's be real. I am.
I love it.
So it's like, why just do the best you can?
Yeah.
Don't hurt people. Like don't, tell people things that you wouldn't do. Don't get too far in your ideology, because I think that was one of like the things I learned in all like my kind of like psilocybin use is like, don't get too far in your ideology to where you have just lost your ability to think critically. So I do try to think. I even try to think critically about carnivore. It's like, for all I know, in 15 years I could be told you are tanking your health. I don't think that's the case, because they've talked to people that have done this 15, 20. There's like one lady I think that's done it like 50 years. And these people look great, they feel great. I'm hoping like by eating as close to like the ancestors as possible that I'm doing well. And it's like we always strive to do better. But I feel like there has to be a point where it's like, I'm a fucking human being, man. Like, am I trying to like change hearts and minds, or am I at the end of the day just trying to make sure that I live my best life, that I'm healthy, and I do as little collateral as possible? Even with eating meat, it's like, yes, there is collateral. Of course there is. But am I trying to like do everything I can to just make this a better, more pleasant experience for human and animal? So
Yeah.
You ever have those weeks where you you know where I'm going with this, or what?
Yeah, of course.
What? Where am I going?
You want to fuck around?
No,
he's about to find out.
You have those weeks where like, because I go in waves where I'm like, just be like a nice person and don't criticize the way people eat, like specifically like the plant-based community. And then you come across a video that's just fucking ridiculous.
I will
like,
stomp through the house bitching and screaming, and he'll just be like, why are you even worried about that? It's not even you.
It's just like so annoying where they talk, they're just misinformed about farming.
Yeah.
Just stick about farming in general. Yeah. They're mostly misinformed from the very beginning about what goes on in agriculture. They're talking about agriculture and they've never stepped foot on a farm.
Right. No,
What
exactly.
you know what I mean? Like
It's
they've
very
never
weird.
been on a plot of land. Taylor Collins from Rome. We went out to. Do you know? Have you heard of Rome Ranch?
No.
It's in Fredericksburg, Texas.
Okay,
It's
okay.
You need to
he does
check 'em out.
bison. You need to check them out. I'll send you their
Cool.
stuff
Okay,
on,
right on.
IG. But they do bison. They own Forces of Nature Meats. Have you seen them?
Yes. Okay. Forces of Nature meats I'm
Yeah.
familiar with.
Yeah. So he's involved with that. He said something like 90% of Americans have never stepped foot on a farm,
I find that bizarre. That's
or they've never met a rancher, something like that. He goes into like details. I'm like, I'm
He's
getting
a
it all
good
wrong.
talker.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger thing is they complain about factory farming. It's not
Factory.
traditional farming.
Yeah.
right.
It's probably both, but it's more like factory
Right.
farming, which
And
is
It's like I'm not in love with factory farming. I fucking hate factory farming. And but like I said, it's like at the end of the day, I just feel like we do our best. Like we try to say like, okay, this is my this year goal to get away from it. This is my this year goal. This is my this goal. And at a certain point, you'd like to think you'll get away from it. You know it's a problem, and you know, like, part of me feels guilty when we buy like grocery store meat. But part of me, like I said, also knows that like, okay, like I'm just trying here. I'm just one person, you know.
Yeah.
And but it's really weird how people just live in these like kind of insulated concrete areas. And it was so funny when I first moved out to the country. Like everyone made fun of me, like, "Oh, you can live in the country. Like, what's out there?" It's like exactly nothing. That's what's out there. So,
Yeah.
and then you look all around you, and like there's these small farms. And it really to me looks so fun. It looks so idyllic. It looks like if you were like, this is your new career, which I partially kind of want it to be. It looks like amazing. Like it, and yeah, like it's crazy how people just can't quantify. Like, no, people raise these animals. Like and it's just like they don't get it. It's like they're so insulated. They only listen to like one type of news or one type of health thing, and it's like they just have their biases about them, and there's just no changing their minds. So it's I find that just very weird.
There are more and more ranches popping up around us that are providing
Yeah.
local meat, which is exciting.
Yes, I've noticed that.
And a lot of them are switching to quote unquote like regenerative organic farming styles. So they're
Right.
not injecting the cows with any hormones or medications or anything. So that's exciting to see.
That's see, and I'm all about that. Like we've bought beef from Jones Creek a few times. I wish you could kind of it was a little more accessible, but I get that there's only so much out there.
Mhm.
But it is always like a good day when you buy meat from like not the grocery store.
Yeah.
So and that's my ultimate goal. We have 3 acres. It was kind of 3 acres of distressed land. We've just cleared a lot of it. We eventually want to get like, maybe like a steer, a couple sheep, just something to kind of make the land sustainable, like to make the land work for us, like to where it's like you kind of get away from this like mass marketing food supply, which to an extent you'll we still need grocery stores, but to an extent it would just be nice to like just take the few things I need from there and then just have my own what I need,
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at.
Mhm.
When I first started eating meat again, I felt like ashamed a little bit going to restaurants
Oh yeah.
because we know everybody like around the area, and so I'd go in and I'd be like, "Do I know anybody here?
Are they gonna see me?
Is it someone gonna see me?" I'd be in a booth and I'd like want to sit in the back, and then it's like I'm like cheating on my girlfriend or something like. And I was just like, and I get the steak and I just move it over to the side. But the first like several weeks, I was like, because everybody knew I was a vegan, and if they see me
what
in
is
like
he
Longhorn
doing?
or something. So did you have that similar like
Yes.
transition?
Yes. It was funny because you eat around people who know you as like the vegan or the vegetarian, and they're just like, "What the fuck is that?" And it's like so wait, and you're not even gonna put any vegetables on your plate? I'm like, please just let me eat. I'll explain later. And so yeah, and it's still here's what's weird. I was vegan at a time when it wasn't cool to be vegan, and I'm now carnivore at a time apparently when plant-based is in. So I've never been able to avoid the what the fuck is on your plate. So I think at this point I'm just used to it. I'm just used to like, yep, that's she's on some weird diet again. It's like, yeah, that's probably par for the course.
I remember when you were vegan, I didn't understand it. I was like, so can you eat fish? Like, can you not eat fish? What do you eat? Fruit? I just didn't understand it. It was totally new to me.
That's the shittiest part about being a vegan is like you have to explain yourself every
Yes.
meal. And so now you transition to this polar opposite one and it's the same shit. It's like, well, what can you eat?
Yeah, you just eat. Oh, that's all good.
Yeah, what can you eat? So it sucks having to explain yourself every meal. You just want to sit and talk about normal shit.
Yeah, you kind of do. And then here's the thing: when you get off and explaining yourself, because I'm an info dumping person, it's like, wow, congratulations! I have now just taken over the conversation, and I sound like a complete asshole for like hijacking the table's conversation. But here we are. You asked, I'm answering, and my answers don't tend to be short. I tend to get very long-winded, and then like the more long-winded I get, the more nervous I get, and like the more nervous I get, like the more I talk. So it's like, here I am now info dumping about my latest diet at the table. Here we are again. How is this different from last time? So it's like I feel like it's like for the rest of your life, it's like you're never going to get to just eat.
Well, I think it's admirable that you're able to switch. That's why I wanted to talk to you. And that's why I wanted to bring you on, because you did it both. You did the vegan diet. You're all in. You had a purpose for it.
Yeah.
And then you switched. And to me, it's important to recognize that.
Yeah.
That's why I like Paul Saladino, because he wrote the Carnivore Code and he's all about the just meat. And then he rewrote a book and then said, no, I had to add fruit into it. To me, that I can trust that person.
Yeah. Like I tend to trust people like that are honest, and even if they're just lay people. So if I'm following these lay people who are not doctors and scientists, who are just like, look, I'm just telling you this is what worked for me and this is how this worked for me. I think for me, if I could even reach like one or two people that just are just tired of feeling like shit. Like, maybe like the what the fuck is on your plate isn't the worst thing ever anymore, And maybe because I've seen both sides, because I know how I felt on one side, I know how I feel on the other side. And it's like, I'm just like, look, if I can do it, anybody can do it. It's just, I mean, it's funny because I have such like limited like skill sets and like attention span. And like I said, I'm a reclusive artist in the country. What do I know? But it's just like, listen, if I can do it, like, you can do it. If I can take charge of this, you can take charge of this. Like, I'm sure you got this,
Yeah. So. Well, people notice, even when you expect people aren't watching, even if you think you're just a small artist from Jordan's Creek, people are watching. When we were running like heavy for a marathon a couple of years back, we used to post all of our stuff on social media every single day.
Right.
And there was a couple times for Mike and myself where our friends were like, we didn't post for a couple of days, and they started asking questions like, "Hey, did you run today or something? Like, did you miss it?" But just because we didn't post that one day, so you're influencing people even when you
whether
don't
you know
even
it
know
or not.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. So I don't know. I come across a lot of people who are dealing with like inflammation, who are dealing with brain fog, who are just not feeling good, and I know this. A carnivore diet and just meat in general has been demonized. Like, oh my God, is that butter on your food? Are you using real mayo? Are you this? Is that full fat? And it's just like, you know what? Just give it 30 days, just try it. I can pretty much promise you, if you cut a lot of the shit from your diet and you used real food, I can pretty much promise you'll be okay. There's a reason these foods have existed for as long as they did. There's a reason processed foods are made in a factory, and that it's kind of like they're trying to sell you this one when it's like, why did you have to engineer this one when this one's just naturally occurring? It's been here. So that's just my whole feelings on the whole thing is you do a lot feel demonized in the diet, and it can be very difficult. You can want to reach people and they are just not having it. They are just like, I've heard that's disgusting. That's boring. I'm not doing that. I hate meat. I don't know how you do it. I mean, you name the pushback, I've gotten the pushback. So finally I'm just like, you know what? I know how I feel. I know, like, I've gone from this body composition to this body composition. I know I can actually fucking eat now. And to me, that's very important. Especially like if you're recovering from eating disorders, that's so important. And I have heard that from a lot of women on carnivore, that they are like, before this, you name the eating disorder, or I just didn't eat. I couldn't eat. I just felt so shitty when I ate. And it's like now it's like I don't have people having to like beg me to eat. I can actually eat, and it's been phenomenal. So that's a big one for me.
Well, Jennifer, we appreciate your story,
Yeah.
and I'm glad you got to share it, and maybe we'll do it again.
Yeah.
I want to get more into the psilocybin next time.
Yeah, I can give you a whole spiel on that.
Yeah.
It's to me, if you want to know, there's not any better therapy than you kind of taking that power for yourself, and I feel like it does wonders. It changes it's changed our lives. If you know how to do the shadow work, and you know like what you're going in working with, and you know what your weaknesses and strengths are, I really feel and I feel like it is what brought me to this diet. Is just like I almost felt like it was like this weird like voice of God. It's like, you are defying nature, you are defying your health. And it was just life changing, and it's been life changing in a lot of ways. So yeah, I'll that's a story for another day. But yeah, I'd happily get into it one day.
Awesome. Well, we had fun.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank y'all.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye.